Good evening, all of you. This is the a webinar on planning and implementation of digital repository using DSpace. Myself, Shivabrata Banerjee from National Digital Library of India. I think many of you have heard about this project. This is a project under the aegis of Ministry of Human Resources Development, Government of India, which is spearheaded by IIT Kharagpur and currently being hosted from IIT Kharagpur under two host names. One is www.ndl.gov.in and another is ndl.iitkgp.ac.in. So here today, we are feeling. I was thinking of sharing some videos or sharing some information with you in this lockdown of the due to COVID-19 disease, and thanks to Bengal Library Association, thanks to Mr. Dr. Joydeep Chando and Mr. Sujan Shaha for hosting this one and inviting me for this talk. So this is a start. So here today topics will be covered is mainly what is a digital repository. I have many queries. Actually, you might know that I have conducted around 25 shops throughout the country, and I have trained around 1900 odd librarians throughout the country. There may be some system admin, there may be some students, those who have participated in our workshops throughout the country. I have found lot of misconception which has been come up. This misconceptions, I just wanted to clear those misconceptions, that what is the digital. That's why I started to speak that what is a digital repository, and what are the concepts, what are the terminologies. Those are to be understood by the librarians, so that they can actually come up with solutions themselves. So today there are 4 topics I will be covering. What is a digital repository? What are the features of a digital repository? How to plan, how to set up a digital repository? What are the planning topics or the planning points you should remember while setting up a digital repository, and how do you implement it with DSpace? I think you might know that I have generally taught about DSpace. I have been in those hands-on sessions, and this is a collective experience of all the hands-on sessions which NDL which I have done with NDL. So this is the first slide of me. So what is a digital repository? So this is a mechanism for managing and storing digital content. This is a very thing which you can say. This managing a digital repository is something you need to understand what are the things to be managed, and you need to understand what are the digital contents, what actually are the digital contents you are going to store. So coming to the digital contents, there are I have just classified. There may be some other what called type of digital contents you may think about, but here I have classified into 5 parts. One is e-books, one is thesis, dissertations, articles, journals, proceedings, etc. So these are a separate class of digital content, which generally we find in institutional digital repository, or maybe a conference where the conference is being held. So they generally put up the proceedings and articles, journals, and all these things. And here the other part of other digital contents, like there can be music, there can be a song, there can be a music of a maestro who has sung instrumental music. They may be a part of a music, they may be a part of maybe a tabla which has been played. So this is what we called music. Speeches, there may be a lot of speeches by very legendary people, and I also say that these are actually, they fall under a called a link proper what called a category called audio books, or maybe audio files, which I say will be more of this thing. There can be sound of animals, etc. So here also there are some the third is video lectures. These are mostly concerned with the video files, video lectures, movies, clips, animations, etc. So these are the separate is the third category of digital contents which we were talking about. Another is manuscripts. Manuscripts, as you understand, manuscripts is a physical thing, but a digitized copy of a manuscripts which I would have been written, it's a digitized copy of manuscripts. These are can be a digital content, because manuscripts obviously has, we all know that manuscripts have a very what called very important for the researchers, those doing research on history, or maybe a history of a place, or maybe a language, or whatever it is, but manuscripts are very much important in that case. And the fifth part is the images or photographs or drawings, all these things. These are a separate category. Why I have made this kind of thing? Because I thought that this kind of thing is actually divided according to the type of metadata, or the type of learning resource type, which we say. If I talk a bit technically, I say learning resource type. This learning resource type may be a ebook, maybe a dissertation, maybe a articles, maybe audio clips, they may be video clips, maybe manuscripts, maybe images or photographs. So these are the kind of digital contents which we are generally concerned of. We need to manage, or we need to store this kind of a digital content in a digital repository. And to the left you will find some questions which generally come to your mind. This is what is an institutional digital repository? So institutional digital repository, if you ask me, the institutional digital repository is mainly hosted by an institute. So institutional digital repository can be of many kinds. One is an institutional digital repository, one can be a digital repository which is hosted by, or maybe hosted by an individual. Say individual, maybe an organization is also hosting a digital repository, maybe a NGO is hosting a digital repository. They are not called institutional digital repository, but because once we say that it's an institutional digital repository, we generally think that we will find things, publications related to research work over there. So these are the digital contents which are placed in the institutional digital repository. Now there are for digital contents a bit of more, if you go in elaborate way of a digital content. This is the type of digital contents which we were speaking in the last slide. Now this slide says that what are the locally hosted digital contents. So let us see what are locally hosted digital contents. So these two persons they want to share contents from their hard disk. They have the content in their repository, or maybe in a hard disk, maybe in a NAS, which we say network attached storage, or whatever it is. The content is digital content is with them. Digital content is with them. They are placed in their local storage. So this is the with this we locally hosted digital content. What is next? A person want to share videos from YouTube. Say you have a YouTube channel and host your videos from there. You have something, you have made a film, and you have hosted in Vimeo. I think many of you have heard about Vimeo. Those who are working with movies and films, they know Vimeo very well. This is a very good site which keep all the movies in a very what called high resolution videos over there. So this is now you want to share those contents from YouTube and Vimeo. So you don't have the content in your local disk. You have it in a YouTube. So can you share those contents? If a person wants to share YouTube videos, he or she have a channel. So can he or she share it? The third part is, I have a good collection of very old and rare documents. Say you will find lot of collectors, they collect lot of documents from very old, like earlier in my early days, I remember I used to collect stamps, I used to collect the upper part of a matchbox. I think many of you have done this in your early days. So this kind of rare documents, what at that time, somebody wants to collect old coins, somebody is collecting old newspapers, so they have their own type of collection. Maybe it is digitized, maybe it is not digitized, that is different. But here in this kind of this thing, I am mainly speaking of digital content. So maybe you have collected something, but you have digitized it somewhere. So can he or she contribute? So how do they contribute their contents? They have digitized those contents. So now these people, those who are having their contents locally hosted, put it up, they will just upload the content. They will create the digital repository and upload the contents in their digital repository. There is no hassle in it. You know very well, you know, there are a lot of digital repository softwares around available, and they can easily put up their contents and they can share it with the public. Now the person who wants to share the YouTube videos, or maybe YouTube videos, or maybe something which is remotely hosted, it's not with them. Now they can provide the URL to the contents. They can provide, they will not store the contents directly, but they will provide the URL to the contents. So those URL will help the people to see. Actually, people, a person visiting your site will come across the link to that particular URL. Now that particular URL will be helping you in helping the user in showing the contents. Now if this kind of thing happens for the third type, I have a good collection of old rare documents, and say some kind of document, say something which you cannot take a picture of, say something you cannot digitize. You have a newspaper, and it is brittle, you know, old books which are stored in very dusty places and all this things. So you can just take a photograph of that book. You can take you cannot scan that newspaper. You can just take a photograph of that book, put it up. This we called as a surrogate of that book. Maybe a newspaper, maybe a news what called it may be a video file which you have somehow recorded from somewhere else. Say the speech by the first Prime Minister of India. So time it was very important, and somehow that person have recorded that speech, so it is with him. So he or she could put it up there. But a person there, he cannot digitize that statue. He is not allowed to take picture of that. So he can put maybe a smaller version of that picture, maybe a low resolution picture of that statue, and put it up in this document, and with proper metadata. But here all we say, so you know, I think I am speaking, I am in this live session with most of the librarians, and I am not allowed to say what is a metadata over here, because metadata is understood by each and everyone. But in a single line, if you want to say for those who are not librarians, because I have been told that there are many people over in this session that they are not librarians. So in this session, for them, I say metadata is a data about the data, means information about the data. So what you have content and you about the content. It is not exactly the content, but some information about the content which makes you understand the content in a better way. Now, what is stored in a digital repository? So first is metadata, as you all know that metadata is stored in a digital repository. What is second? This second is contents and full text. So in this full text, contents and full text. So in this way, I would say that the files which are the files which you upload, they are contents, and the extracted version of the text, extracted text from those contents are called full text. So these two are saved in the contents. Now the third thing which is coming here is the index. So this is the third part which is stored here. So the index, I think many of you already know what is an index. So in this session, I would just say index is a collection. Index will help you to understand what is what, how do you store, how do you search or retrieve the contents in a better way. Okay. So on the left side, I have asked that what is an index, why index is a separate entity, and is it not stored with the database. So many of you know that it is not, it is generally stored with the database. As you see that in a database we index the database so that it is searched easily. So but here the index is saved outside of the database, so this is called an inverted index. And here the index obviously is a separate entity. Here the index is a separate entity, right? Now comes the contents, how they are classified. So in this digital repository, this is a feature of a digital repository, it can classify contents. In the initially I have said that there are various types of contents. There are thesis clips, video clips, what called manuscripts, and a lot many things. So this kind of a classification is required. So in this way, you in this digital repository, you need to understand that each and every contents needs to be stored in a separate category or separate classified bucket. I have shown you in buckets here that all the contents in a digital repository are stored in a different buckets. Okay. Now this so in this way I would say that in this digital repository, the third feature which I am talking about is the manual and batch processing of data, or steps to review data entry. So is it do you know what is the data entry? Data entry, you know that all of you know that there are a lot of things are to be done in data entry. So in this kind of data entry, you just type in the metadata and you upload the contents. So this is what we call the data entry. Next step is the accept and review. This is a reviewer who is accepting the content or rejecting the content. So if a data entry is going on, it is directly not archived. Because why it is not archived? Maybe a reviewer data has made some mistake which will be checked or reviewed by the reviewer, who will either accept or reject the what called your content or metadata, whatever it is. It is, if he feels that it is accepted, put it up, or he can reject the content, and again the rejected content will come back to the data entry operator, and then the data entry operator will again correct and reviewer once again. So next last step is archive. So this is the last step. So before a data entry operator archives the data, so here is a process of review, reviewer, accept and reject. So in this step, so this is a feature of a digital repository. This feature is a very important feature in digital repository. So it must be there, so that a data entry operator directly is not allowed to archive a document. So here I would say that there are two kinds of data entry. One is manual on the to the left hand side. You see that there are manual data entry and batch processing. So manual data entry, do you know the difference between a manual data entry and a batch processing? So manual data entry is you type in something and you what called upload the content. But in a batch processing, what you do is you make the metadata and the content ready in one go, maybe in a lot of iteration, and then you ingest or upload the data in one go. So it is a batch, it's forming of a batch. So it works in batches. So it uploads a batch of documents at one go. Now if I ask you, if the second question, if you see which is the better way of data ingestion, so just can you think of which is the better way of ingestion and just come up with your solutions to me, maybe somehow by mail, or maybe questions or whatever it is. Just come up with me that which is the better way of data ingestion. I will talk to you there which is the better way of ingestion at that time. Now now after I have uploaded the contents, so now what? Now users are allowed to access the data. Now users need to get access to the credential documents. So this is also a very important feature of a digital repository, which I would say. So the digital repository must see that who the access to the data and who are not given access to the data. So the or maybe somebody is given access to some extent, not beyond that. So in this way, say a server is there, somebody is restricted access and somebody is open access. So this is the way we just differentiate the kind of data. So this is a very important feature of a digital repository. Digital repository must have this kind of a feature, so that it allows the user to access the data. Maybe it may be an open access, maybe it is a restricted access. So restricted, what is the difference between an open access and a restricted access? Because a digital repository generally allows you open access. So if you are accessing any content, so the digital repository will say that okay, you are given access. But say there may be some contents, maybe you have made a digital repository of say all the office orders of a particular office. Now in this kind of a repository, if you say that all are allowed to see all the data, so it will be quite difficult for a manager to manage that. If everyone sees what is the office order of a particular manager getting transferred to somewhere else, so these are some confidential documents needs to be given a restricted access. Say so this kind of a thing, say in maybe in case of a PhD thesis also, say somebody has submitted his PhD or thesis or maybe dissertation. So now he or she has to publish a paper. Maybe he is communicating with the publisher, and he is going to publish a journal shortly, and it is under review. Now he says that you put up my data, I have given you put it up in your repository, but it must not, my thesis must not be viewed by somebody else, right? So if you say that, so in this case it is restricted. You need to put a restriction on that. But is it possible that you put a restriction on student have, or the research scholar have asked you to put a restriction on this kind of thesis for maybe 6 months or maybe 1 year? So after 1 year, you need to remember that you need to take a note of it, that after 1 year you need to release this one. After you have to set a date, you need to set a date where you need to say that after this I need to go back to my repository and release this one, and put or remove the restriction over that particular thesis. So in this kind of a scenario, you must put a restriction. Now how do you manage that? How do you manage that? There are in several repository softwares, open source softwares. Most of the repository softwares has this kind of a facility. In DSpace, this is called embargo. I think many of you have heard about embargo. So this is called embargo. So you have put a restriction on that, and that restriction can be removed after some time. Now the question comes of a implementation of a digital repository using a content management system. So you know what is a content management system? Content management system is the contents which you are putting up in a repository. Those contents are required to be managed along with the metadata. So each and every metadata is pointed to a particular content. So, they need to have a link between the metadata and the content. So, this is called a content. All these things is done by a content management system. It does a lot of things, but it is a part of that content management system which does all these things. So, now the first step in implementation of a digital repository. So, till now what we have learned is what is a digital repository, what are the features of a digital repository. Now, we will learn how to implement, what are the points we need to remember before we plan for a digital repository. So, on the left side you will see that lot of icons are given, where this lot of open source digital repository softwares are there. Maybe DSpace, Islandora, one is OJS, collective access. So, these are very Greenstone. So, all these are very commonly used digital repository softwares. But to implement each of these, you need to first plan yourself, plan an implementation process. So, this will help you. First, select a free and open source tool depending upon the type of your collection. So, you can work with a you can ask a company to design a digital repository software for you, but I would suggest that you can configure an open source tool to maintain a digital repository in your institute or maybe in your organization. So, first step is in that you don't go for directly for if your policy or this thing does not allows you, then it is fine. Otherwise, you must go for an open source tool for your learning, right. Now, what are the things, what are the type of collections you are planning for? Say maybe you are only having thesis, you are developing a institutional digital repository, so you are only having thesis. You are a publisher, or you are a kind of integrator, so you are making a digital repository of journals, articles, proceedings, all these things. You are a collector, you are putting up manuscripts, they have a separate kind of, they can be put it up in a separate kind of digital repository. You have multimedia files, you are a musician, or you are a you are a composer, so you develop lot of composed music, or you just compile lot of musics, right. You are a DJ, so you come up with lot of musics. So, in this is kind of a multimedia repository you are planning of. You can put up some geographical data in this. So, what are the geographical data? A location of a particular place, a climate of a particular place, having latitude and so this kind of data having its own resource, having its own set of metadata to represent this kind of, say you have a map, you cannot directly put up this map and say that who is the author of that map. Nobody knows who is the author of a geographical data, who is the author of a multimedia file. There can be composer, there can be singer, but there cannot be an author for a song, or maybe there cannot be author for a music. So, this kind of a thing is different from a thesis. The thesis have an author, a journal has an author, articles, proceedings all have an author, but manuscripts, they may have an author, they may not have an author. But multimedia files like audio clips and all these things may not have an author. The geographical data doesn't have an author. So you need to, so my aim is to make you understand that depending upon your type of collection, the open source tool needs to be selected. You can go for DSpace, you can go for Islandora, Omeka, Greenstone, collective access, open access, so the OJS, so whatever it is, but you need to think that these are the collections which I have myself. I should make use of this tool. So, go for learn, or go to the net, go to the internet, ask Google sir that what kind of a tool has what kind of metadata map to it, or what are the pros and cons for this kind of a tool. So, you understand that you have this kind of collection, so which tool is will be correct for you. Now, classify your contents. After you have selected this thing, next is that you classify. There will be a separate classification technique. So, it may be that a broad subject area is classified, in a thesis. Say maybe in a thesis you say computer science is the broad subject area. Next is image processing, artificial intelligence, machine learning, information retrieval. So these are the subclasses. Then you put up like in machine learning years in 2010, these are the thesis which has come under machine learning. So these are the thesis which has come under image processing. So these are the thesis in this year come under what called artificial intelligence. So in this way it goes away. So now also you can put it, share, you can classify it according to the date, place and time of the photograph. So you have a lot of photographs which has been clicked, you have collected a lot of photographs from or you have clicked a lot of photographs in your lifetime, you have visited a lot of places. So the date of taking of the photograph, that's most important, because today you take a photograph of a particular place, next you find that that has been changed. So this is quite difficult to understand that whether this place was this date and this place was actually there or not, right? And the time of the photograph. So it was taken, maybe you are attending a big talk of a particular person, and in this time it was taken at that particular time. So these are the areas, these are the classification which you can you will be able to classify your content. Now next is the metadata standards. You need to fix the metadata standards. So which metadata standard you are working with? Maybe you can working with Dublin Core, you can work with Midas, you have a lot of options of metadata standards. So you can select according to your collection. So what is that? So in this metadata, in these kind of metadata standards, you can describe your data in a better way. You can describe your data in a better way. And now to access the contents, how to access the contents? So on the left hand side, the question comes, how to access the contents? How do you access? Is metadata accessible? You have those questions in your mind. You have just think of whether metadata is accessible or the content is only accessible. Now where do we upload this content and metadata? Where do we upload? Now we are now ready to start where we are going to upload this content. Now after you have selected all these things, now install the CMS software. Maybe it is DSpace, maybe it is Omeka, maybe it is Islandora, whatever it is, you install the CMS software, and now you configure. You start configuring the software. How the software maybe it is working under in its workstation. It is installed in your college or an institute. It is installed in your company, wherever it is. But you need to start the installation and configure the CMS software. You create logins. Who will be the data entry operators, who will be the reviewers, all these things. You need to create the logins and design the data entry forms for them. They may be a lot of people, those who doesn't know about how the data entry forms are designed. So they need to know that what are all the metadata fields they are going to enter, and their data entry forms are to be given. Now you start uploading the contents. Now, so the 4 steps are: first is install the software, configure it, create the logins, now design a data entry form for them, and start uploading contents. Now the required infrastructure. Now this is a very important point. I have been asked a lot many times that what is the required, where will we install, do we need a server to install? We need somebody has ordered a big server where they are putting up their digital repository and they have only 500 content. So it is quite difficult for me to make them understand that you don't need a server of such a high capacity server to host your digital repository. It can be your laptop, it can be your desktop, but some obviously there are some configuration things which are required. So first is that you need a CPU, any CPU with the latest Xeon i5 or whatever it is. RAM, I would suggest that if it is an institutional repository, generally all these things depend on the file size. Depending on the file size, maybe the file size means which file size? The file size of the contents which you are going to upload, the file size of all, like maybe the contents means the file size of the files which you upload into the repository. Maybe if your file size is bigger, it is very big file size, maybe a file of a few hundred MBs, maybe it is a 500 MB file, so you need a more of RAM to show it on your for the show it to the users. You need to have that much of hard disks also to host your contents. See, you need to think that your contents needs to be hosted there. So maybe you have a collection of a repository, maybe it is collection of some files which is around say the files will be combining around say 400 GB. It is in a 1 TB hard disk, so it is 400 GB size of your total repository. So you need to plan for a 1 TB hard disk in that case, because your repository this also will grow. Like today it is 400 GB, tomorrow it may be going to 500 GB, 600 GB, and so on and so forth. So at least you need to plan for that much of space, so that in next maybe 2-3 years you need not go for a hard disk upgrade. So upgrading anything is quite difficult, so better for this kind of resources finalize at the first moment. RAM upgradation is also difficult, hard disk upgradation is also difficult for or maybe CPU. You need to change the complete set of hardware, you need to change the desktop or change the server if you are upgrading the hardware resources. Network, for network I would say it's a 1 GB LAN is sufficient for that, and you need to have if you are hosting it outside, if you are hosting it for public, or you are hosting it for in a public domain, you need to have a WAN connection, maybe through an ISP, maybe it is NKN, maybe it is some other private service provider, whatever it is, you need to have a WAN connection. And this is the part of the hardware resource gone. So now for the software resources, I would suggest that please use Linux to host your mostly the open source digital repositories, because you know Linux, there are lot many instances, lot many options that you can host your digital repository in Windows, but I would suggest that using an enterprise Linux is much better to maintain, because in National Digital Library of India we maintain lot of servers, and you know all these servers run 24/7 without with a 99%, 99.9% uptime. So I have seen that it runs very good on enterprise class OS. So if it is a Red Hat, if it is a CentOS, these are all enterprise class operating system. So these are this can be this is okay. There are some questions which are coming up in the YouTube my YouTube this thing live, that someone wants to ask some questions. So it is better that you ask your questions in YouTube. I will answer all those questions, or you can just put up your questions or mail me in this slide. In the first slide I have my mail address, my phone number, that's in WhatsApp also. So please mail me. I would prefer if you mail me your questions, so that I can answer you in a better way, right? Because answering in a YouTube live is quite difficult. It is live, but it is not live in that way. It's not a video conferencing kind of thing. So I will not be able to answer all your questions over here now, right? Now comes now after the operating system is gone. So here I have written Ubuntu, CentOS, Fedora, Red Hat. All these are the flavors of Linux. These are the most popular versions of Linux. Then there are many Linux which are available in the net, which generally is related to this kind of a thing, which is based on Fedora, which is based on Debian, which is based on Ubuntu, or which is based on CentOS. So you can install in those Linux. But what we would suggest, that if you are going for a permanent thing, or if you are trying at your home, you can do it in anywhere. You can do it in Ubuntu, Fedora, Red Hat, Windows, whatever it is. But if you are going for a your institutional repository, or a repository for your company, or a repository for your organization, so better you go for Red Hat or CentOS. Red Hat is a commercial version, and CentOS is a free version of is an open source free version of Linux operating system. So the second thing which is required is the DSpace, like free operating system, free open source software. In this along with DSpace, there are a lot many free operating system, free open source softwares available for designing a digital repository, and each of these have their own prerequisites. Say like DSpace have some prerequisites, Islandora have some prerequisites, your collection access, collective access have some prerequisites. So these are different kind of an open source tool which have their own prerequisites. And for database, again PostgreSQL is used. PostgreSQL is again a open source RDBMS tool. Why PostgreSQL is used? Yes, PostgreSQL is as powerful as Oracle. It can handle, today National Digital Library of India has around a very close to 5 crore contents, and all these contents, I would say, it is hosted in a single PostgreSQL instance. So this is the power of PostgreSQL. So it is a very good powerful database which is which works as a metadata store for a DSpace. And the last point, which is a little bit of confidence, I think I can give you the confidence that all of you who are trying to install DSpace, trying to make friends, like before you make your friends, you need to spend some time with them. So just spend time with DSpace, so you get a friend to DSpace, and DSpace will tell you that where actually you are making mistakes. So just like a good friend, it will guide you that in this way you go by this way, so that you can the place where the DSpace is installed and it is fully functional with all the functionalities. Now this is the link of National Digital Library project website, where we have hosted our institutional digital repository software idr.iso, where you can download it from. Right now, this is the online documentation of DSpace 6. Here I will be generally talking about DSpace 6, and so just go to these sites and try to read those contents. What is the why DSpace, why it is so popular, how can it be installed? So all these things are there. Yeah, installation steps, you will be feel that after reading those installation steps, you will feel that no, it is not possible for any non-technical person to install, but just have patience. Let me go to the other slides. You will see how this is very easy to install. Now the prominent features of DSpace is it is free and open source software. This is all of us know. And second point is store and preserve wide range of digital objects with metadata. It can store and preserve wide range of digital objects, ranging from image, photographs, videos, audios, up to what called your flash files, your flash contents. It can store up to lot many things. If you go to the if you install DSpace, I will show you in my later webinars that where from you can find what are the digital objects which DSpace can store. So the third point is that submission workflow. It has a proper submission workflow. I have shown you earlier that what is the submission workflow. You have a data entry, you have an accept reject step, and then the content is archived. So this is the submission workflow for data entry. Now it has also facility for batch ingestion. So what is a batch ingestion? Batch ingestion is, I have said you earlier that you ingest. It is ingest means you upload contents into DSpace in a batch. In a batch means in a group. Batch means in a group. Like I think many of you have worked with Windows. They have batch files. So batch files is a collection of some commands running in one go. So this is something like that, batch ingestion. So it has a good search and retrieval system. You can search in DSpace and retrieve the relevant content of yours. So you can find that, yeah, I have got what I have searched. What I have searched is the thing which I have got it, right? So this search and retrieval system, backbone of this is Lucene, which is developed at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, US. So they have developed this Lucene. This is very, very, very powerful software which is used in most of the search and retrieval system. We call it an information retrieval engine, IR engine we call it. Now DSpace is easy to deploy, use and maintain. So deploy is thing where we are need to deploy. We can make you understand that why it is so easy to deploy. Use and maintain also we will show you in the later slides that how to easily deploy a DSpace, how easily it is used to it can be used and maintained. So and lastly, DSpace have a good community support. I think many of you know what is a community support. Like if you are facing any problem, you can ask in a community. Like initially I have installed DSpace 1.0 in probably in the year maybe 2006 or 2007, I just forgot, maybe in 2005 or 6 I have installed DSpace. So in that time I did not get a community support. I need to find each and every problem which DSpace used to have, which I used to face all those problems, and I need to get it solved by making my my technical know-how into the work. But now it has a good community support because it is used by a lot of developers, lot of people throughout the country. Now the last but not the least is easy backup and restore. This is the most important thing in our digital repository. If you are not able to take easy backup or you are not able to restore your contents very easily, you will not be using a software, because if something happens to your repository, this backup of your repository will help you again build up the same repository with least effort. Now the kind of user interfaces it has, one is a JSP UI, we call it Java Server Pages user interface. You know Java Server Pages very well. JSP is a very common term which you have heard lot of in many places. You have heard of Java, you have heard of Java servlets, you have heard of lot of things. So this Java is used to develop a user interface in DSpace. The other interface which is also similarly popular to JSP is XML UI. It is called Extended Markup Language User Interface. Why? You know HTML very well. The extended of HTML is an XML. So this XML interface uses XML tools to design the user interface. So it is not that JSP UI has a different set of features than XML UI. Both are having the same features, but it is the ease of the user, it is the ease of a particular developer to design or change or modify the front ends, modify various things within DSpace as it is open source. So you can play with the softwares and you can take help of those technologies which are in JSP UI and XML UI to modify the interfaces. There are three more interfaces in DSpace. One is REST. REST. It is not that it is resting over there. No, it is not that. REST. REST API. It is application programming interface. This REST API of DSpace, it needs to be configured separately after DSpace gets installed, and through this REST API you can query, you can see what are all the contents, what are all the communities, what are the collections in DSpace. It is there, and you can do lot many things in REST API as you can do in the front end. There are bit differences, but REST API is a programming API, application programming interface. Say you don't want, you may not like the interface of a DSpace, and you think that I need to design my own interface of DSpace, and the query I will send to DSpace and get the results. DSpace is already there. So in that case, REST API is very important to you to host your to design a front end of yours. Solr is another endpoint. Solr is actually the heart of DSpace. Solr actually is the stores all the index, and it is in between Lucene, which I have told you earlier, the Lucene and the DSpace. So Solr is between Lucene and DSpace. So Solr acts as a bridge between the contents which are coming from DSpace and which are going to index in Lucene. This is very important index. This Solr actually can be configured so that it can be accessed from outside, but the Solar is generally accessed only from the local host, not from outside. Say a DSpace can be hosted outside, but don't think that Solar can also get access from outside. No, it not happens. If you want that access, that I want to see Solar from outside, then you need to configure your DSpace according to that or modify the code. Third interface, I think many of you know what is harvesting. So this OAI-PMH is a third interface of DSpace, which is used for harvesting purpose. I will show you in my later lectures that how OAI-PMH is being used. So what are the installation prerequisites of DSpace? So now in this prerequisites, first is Java as a programming language. You can go to the URLs which is being mentioned and see that what is Java and what is what. Apache Ant, which is used to compile the Java code. Maybe you are having a lot of Java code and they needs to be compiled separately, but you have 10 Java code. Why do you go to, you need to go to each and every code and compile and come out? But Apache Ant will help you to compile all the codes at a time and make you a give you a archive kind of thing which you can access. Maven also does the same thing, but Maven has a bit some more features than Apache Ant, which also can pull libraries from outside if you are using some libraries which are not present in your Java code. Now PostgreSQL is the backend database which I have told you. Yeah, DSpace source folder is required. DSpace has two kinds of folder. One is the DSpace source folder, another is a DSpace installation folder. So this source folder needs to be there present, and you need to download this source from the internet. Now the last is the Linux operating system, which you are familiar with. So in this Linux operating system, you know that you need to install all these things. So these are the prerequisites: Linux operating system, Java, Ant, Maven, Postgres, and the DSpace source folder. But all these things needs a very technically strong people to understand all these things and do it. Now in this we have come up with some scripts. So why these scripts? Because we have seen that if I ask you that go to the Java site, come up, come down and put this installation, say maybe give a big command like rpm minus ivh, then Java is installed. So where is Java installed? You don't know the default path, you need to look for where is Java is installed. Now you go for Ant. So it takes lot of time to install each and every software and each and every prerequisite before you go to install DSpace. So what we have done, we have come up with some scripts. So what are these scripts? These scripts are all these commands giving put at maybe say in some sequence, so that if you run that script, all these commands get executed at one go. So that you need to know that you this is the sequence of, there may be 4 to 5 scripts which you run. But if you are installing, if you are not installing with the scripts, there are 10 to 12 steps to install DSpace. But in National Digital Library of India, from National Digital Library of India, if you download our idea.iso, it will be installed in very less number of steps. We have the tutorial with it. If you if you have got the URL, you can download it, see what are the tutorials, you extract it and find out what all the tutorials are there. It will be very easy for you to understand. Now if you download this file from this, open the ISO file, extract the idea.tar.gz. This there will be an idea.tar.gz. This is a archive file. Extract this archive file to your home folder, and if you are extracting that, again unarchiving that idea.tar.gz, then you will come up with a IDR, capital I, capital D, capital R folder, where you will be able to get all the contents ready. Now this IDR folder must be placed in your home directory. So before that, I would like to say that in Linux you create a DSpace account. In that DSpace account, you will be able to you will be downloading this IDR ISO, and then you will be installing the you will be extracting the folder idea.tar.gz, and this idea.tar.gz will also getting put in this idea folder in your DSpace home directory. Here home folder means your DSpace home folder. Here in this idea folder we have separate scripts for 32-bit and 64-bit operating systems. You know what is a 32-bit and 64-bit operating system. Now these, what are those scripts? These are the name of those scripts: copy32.sh, copy64.sh, which are used to copy the files to relevant folders. You need not bother. You just give /copy32.sh or /copy64.sh. That's all. I will show you in my later slides how this works. Now, if you want to install PostgreSQL, don't go to PostgreSQL run. This is not, that needs to be made executable. That is not running. This is not happening. No, it will not go in that way. It will just simply just give PostgreSQL 64. It will come like in a you have installed Microsoft Office. So you just next, it gets installed. Now to test, see whether you have what you have done is correct or not, that is there to run that test.sh command before you run the installations command. So these are the few sets of what called scripts which are there, which will be which is there in our in my later talks. I will show you some more scripts are also there, so which will be presented. Now the first step is you install Postgres. Postgres is the database which you are installing. So now open the terminal window, run the following commands. I am in the home directory. If you open up a terminal, you will open the home directory. You will see a dollar symbol is there. I will later on, if you have some questions regarding, keep on asking questions in my mail and maybe in YouTube channel, so I can answer, right? And so give a command cd space idr, then you go inside idr directory and you run sudo then a space /pgsql64.sh or /pgsql32.sh, and so in this way you can start installation of the Postgres. Now while you give sudo, it will ask you for the password of DSpace user, which you are next, you just give, as you installed a lot of softwares earlier, so you give next. When it asks for a password, then you give DSpace 123 two times, DSpace 123, DSpace 123. Don't give D and then a space bar. Don't use space bar. DSpace 123 two times. You need to give password two times. So how to type a password? I have some golden rules with me. In my later slides, I'll show you. So now comes the pgadmin. Now while this is installed, you run pgadmin 3, which is the interface of a Postgres server. There you will see that PostgreSQL server is there. Go to that PostgreSQL server name. It will be say PostgreSQL 9.5, 9.4 something, it will be written. So you click on that, come to give, while it is while you double click over there, it will ask you a password. So give the password DSpace 123, which you have given while you have installed the Postgres. So there you will find on the left hand side there will be three windows. On the left hand side there will be a bigger window. On the right hand side there will be a longer window to the left hand side. On the right hand side there will be a what called horizontal window. On the left side you will see there are login roles or databases. All these things are there. So here click on login role. Right click over login role and say create new role and give the role name as DSpace, right? In the next tab you will see that there, if you click on the next tab where you are typing in the as a DSpace login, on the next tab you will see that it is asking for the password. Again you give the password two times, it is DSpace 123. Again I am saying there is a way to type the password once you are creating a login ID. I will come to that. Now once this login role is created, you will see that below login role there will be only Postgres written, but below that or above that DSpace will come. Go to the top, just bit above that you will see databases. Again right click over databases, you will see that create new database. So first login role and then database. So come to the database, right click over that, say create new database, and again it will ask you that what is the name of database. It will given give DSpace, DSpace. Just below to that you will see a owner, you will see a owner written. So on the right side you will see a drop down box. So there a drop down menu will come. If you click on that down headed arrow, if you click on that, you will see there are two users. Ones that you have created DSpace, and the one user which was already there, that's called the Postgres. So here you will select DSpace as a owner. Now after that database is created, again click on the right click over the DSpace database, right? Click over the DSpace database. Now say that DSpace database, right click over that and say you will find a new object. If you click on the right click over the DSpace database, you will see that a new object has come up. There in that new object, say new extension, new object and then new extension. In this new extension, again a window will come up where you need to, again a drop down menu will come where you will click on that drop down menu, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. You will see PG crypto, PGCRYPTO, PG crypto is written. So in this PG you need to select this PG crypto. Then you select OK. That is the installation and configuration of your Postgres is completed. Now the next step is the installation of DSpace. Now with these there are 4 steps to the installation of DSpace. First is that you, for if it is a 32-bit OS, you go for the above part of my code slide, and if it is a 64-bit OS, you see the lower part of my slide. Here you will see that all the commands which are to be given, each and every command needs to be given with a / except the source command, which is internal command of Linux. So that source command is not prefixed with a /. So mind it. Type each and every command very meticulously so that it doesn't give an error, right? Last, once you are done with all those commands, give a /test.sh and see that whether your command, they will be giving you an output that all these things have been configured. If this output is not coming, Java not found, all these things not found, so you don't go for installation. So first rectify that, then go for installation. This is a test in between, right? Now if you are in this slide, if you are using a proxy server from your institute, then you need to go to this .m2 folder, and .m2 folder is in your home directory, where you will be seeing a file called settings.xml, where you need to delete the portion from proxies to proxies. There will be this is an XML file, settings.xml is an XML file. So while you open that file, there will be several tags in that. There will be finding a tag called proxies, and it ends with the proxies. So this part you need to delete if you are not using proxy server. If you are using a proxy server, then you need to give the IP address of that proxy server. It is given there, some different IP address is given here, there, and with a different port number. You need to put your proxy server according to that. You need to configure, or you need to type in your proxy server according to the proxy server which is used by your institute. Your proxy server and port, right? Now this is your what called configuration and prerequisites of DSpace is over. Now the DSpace starts installation. So in this part you need to give /install.sh once you fire the rocket. So here you need to give this command and wait till create administrator comes. Create administrator is it will give you build success, all these things. If you have done all your process correctly up to this time, then you will get a build success and a create administrator. So once this is got, you need to create administrator. For it will ask you for a email address, it will ask you for a password. You just give any email address, any password. Just remember what password you have given. That will be the administrator of your DSpace. So now this create administrator will, after this create administrator is done, then it will say that Tomcat started. So Tomcat is the horse upon which the DSpace rides. If Tomcat is stopped, DSpace is also stopped. So DSpace cannot ride it by himself. So Tomcat is the horse upon which the DSpace rides. So once you say Tomcat started, now open your browser, whichever browser you are going to, Firefox, Chrome, whatever it is. Chrome doesn't come in Linux, it is Chromium. Sorry for this mistake. In Chromium, if you have installed Chromium in Linux, it is as good as Chrome in Windows. So there you need to type in this URL http://localhost:8080/XML UI. So this is your interface of DSpace. So this you will get. This is the interface of DSpace. It is the XML interface of DSpace, which I will be showing you is mostly the XML interface of DSpace. This is very easy to handle and easy to configure, whatever it is, but we are going to showing you XML interface of DSpace, right? So this interface will come. Now these are the golden rules. Now in this kind of a most important steps. So these are just golden rules that's why I have written in golden, right? So the most important step in learning a software is to follow the steps and note the same before you try hands-on, before you go for a hands-on, before you go for a installation in your, or before you type in the keyboard. So before that, follow the steps. What are the steps? And note it down, so that if you are missing something, so you can tally it from the screen to your notebook. So that is the most important thing. Next is, while login ID and password, I was just saying you a few slides before that use only single index finger to type the password. Single index finger to type the password. Don't use your 4 fingers, because 8 fingers, because if you type in this way, so you may make a mistake. So this is the way you create a new password. So this is not for all, that those who are very much conversant with the keyboard, this is not for them, but those who are not conversant with the keyboard, so please use a single index finger to type the password, because I have said there are 30 workshops. So each and every workshop we find at least 10% to 20% of the people making mistakes while typing in password. They are very much conversant with the keyboard, but they make mistakes because they were not typing. They do not know that which finger has gone where, because while typing in the password or while entering the password, passwords are not seen in Linux. So that is the most important thing. So this is why we say that use only single index finger to type the password. Now do not close, because do not close any window unless instructed. Means if you are closing any window, it will say all the paths, everything are set over there, so that will get disturbed. So in this way, please do not close any window. It will be a Unity launcher is we are actually in for in Ubuntu, we say it's a Unity launcher. It is minimized to the Unity launcher. So that is why we always say that do not close a window. And after, last but not the least golden point is, after entering a command in a terminal, the output will come in the terminal. So please look at the terminal, what output it has given. So please follow the output to understand what the system is going to tell you. These are the very important 4 golden rules which you need to follow while installing this kind of a software, right? So I think last part is this Tomcat shutdown and startup commands are written. So /shutdown.sh and /startup.sh. I show you some places where Tomcat is required to